Thank you very much. We're all here as a very friendly, well-unified group.
We found that Americans are pretty pessimistic about politics, President Trump, and the overall direction of the country as this year comes to a conclusion. They feel overwhelmingly that the country is not moving in the right direction. 3 in 10 Americans said that the country was moving in the right direction. And that's a pretty grim assessment for the president and for Republicans as they head into 2018 when the control of Congress is going to be up for grabs. And again, we were really struck by just the breadth of the pessimism. It applies to the way people feel about how President Trump is handling major issues, things like healthcare, things like foreign policy. The one relative bright spot for the president was on the economy. About 40% of Americans approved of the job he's doing, but 40% in the context of an economy that actually is improving, where you see unemployment hovering around 4%, is certainly lower than the White House would be hoping.
Thank you very much, everybody.
When the president talks about his year, he talks about it in grand historic terms, saying that he's done more in one year than any of his predecessors have. But what the public told us is that they just don't feel that way. It's less than a quarter of Americans who say that the president has fulfilled his campaign promises. And only about half of Republicans feel that he's fulfilled those campaign promises. And that's part of why you see this urgency from the White House to really get a tax overhaul done before the end of the year.
I think we're doing very well on the tax. We'll see what happens, but I think we're doing very well. It's something that's going to be monumental.
The reality is, no matter what rhetoric the president uses, he has not had a major legislative success in 2017. They know that if they're going to head into 2018 and try to convince voters to keep Republicans in charge on Capitol Hill and then eventually ask them to keep Trump in office, they have to start showing some tangible successes. And based on the way the year has gone, the only thing they have left standing is a tax overhaul. So for Republicans, they spent most of the Obama administration trying to convince voters that if they could just be in charge of Washington, if they could have control of Congress and control of the White House, then they could really govern, they could get things done.
I'm so excited that we're on the cusp of this great accomplishment. And if Congress acts by Christmas, people are going to see gains very soon.
And so what we're seeing in this poll is that right now Americans don't feel like things are getting done. Republicans will have a big challenge on their hands in 2018 to try to convince voters that just because there wasn't a lot of legislation moving through Washington that they should be kept in charge. Democrats have the opposite mission. They have to really hammer home this idea that Republicans either didn't fulfill their promises, or in cases where they did, they were taking actions that didn't benefit people's lives, that middle-class Americans, lower-class Americans might not feel directly, that most of what they did was benefiting the wealthy.
And instead of helping middle-class Americans, they decided their top priority was to slash.
For Democrats, there are certainly some signs in here of places where they can message to voters, where they can really try to take advantage of it. Elections are a long way off still, so Republicans have some chances to gain ground, to try to get some things through Congress next year. But certainly the overall message is pessimism, and people really feel like that Washington is not having a positive impact on their lives.